first to the floor here. Pierce comes out with it. Hit the deck, first to the floor, making every big play for the Celtics today. Tatum knocks it away, trying to get it. Dives.
What a play by Big Tower. Watch him dive for the ball right here. Look at this hustle.
Ben Vallis here with First to the Floor. Thank you for joining us. Hope you're doing well. The Celtics are back in the win column after a tumultuous 2-game losing streak. But I don't care what you say. You beat Kevin Durant on the road under any circumstances. That's a solid win. Joining us to talk all about it, Wayne Spooney and Jay Gleisenberg. How's it going, guys?
Doing good, man. Like, that wasn't just Kevin Durant, bro. That was like Red Dwarf, sun exploding Kevin Durant. That shit was crazy. Like, it's just like fun to watch him when he does shit like that.
Mm-hmm.
It was weird because like the last few times we've played Kevin Durant, he hasn't been able to do that to us, and so like him going nuclear against other teams has been something that I'm like, yeah, this is fun.
Yeah,
and it's not as fun when he's doing the 7-foot Steph Curry thing to your team, but yeah, when he's doing that, I mean, you'll take the win any day of the week.
Yeah.
It is fun and satisfying to be able to employ the Jokic style defense of let Jokic cook and defend everybody else, except in the case of Kevin Durant and the Suns and their horrible bench and supporting cast that Durant can put up nearly 50 and you can still win the game somewhat comfortably in the end. So 117, 110 the final score, which we'll get to in a moment. But first, please hit that like button. Help put the show in front of more people. Help us, or put us rather, in favor of the algorithm by hitting that like button. Subscribe to the First to the Floor YouTube channel. I've said this maybe once before, but Brian Scalabrine doesn't come on any show for less than 20,000 subscribers. So we've just hit 3. 5 is obviously the next goal. So subscribe to this channel and help us increase the allure of the show for potential guests like Brian Scalabrine and his peers. Playback streams. Watch Celtics games with us. Playback.tv/Celtics blog. Check out Spoonie's latest column, 3-Leaf Clover. Spoonie, you just put something out. Am I right there?
I'm actually late. It'll be coming out tomorrow.
Okay, great.
Yeah, it's breaking down the clutch numbers, Jaylen Brown attacking in semi-transition, and just sort of a more philosophical section about what it is to be a fan and why we overreact and why it's horrible but also amazing.
Wow, I feel targeted by that. I definitely need to read that.
I mean, that's all of us, boys.
Yeah, of course. That's why we do this. You can buy First to the Floor merch now on our merch store. A bunch of people have already jumped in and bought First to the Floor bucket hats and T-shirts and all kinds of clothing, attire, and accessories. And you can jump into our Discord channel as well. You can help suggest segments and topics and ideas for the podcast and just chop it up with us when we're not live on YouTube here on the First to the Floor YouTube channel or later on the audio podcast, which you should also subscribe to and leave a 5-star rating. Also, finally here, if you're a fan of the show, check out the Celtics Lab podcast and the How About Them Celtics podcast. Very similar shows, similar vibes, and both under the CLNS umbrella there. So we're huge proponents of their show. Likewise, them of ours. So check them out if you haven't already. All right, guys. Like I said, 117 to 110. A bit of a malaisical, if there is such a word, approach to this game. Like, it was kind of messy. General takeaways from this one, Spoonie?
So I think the big thing is... I don't know if malaise is the right. I don't know, man. I thought they played pretty well overall. I like a lot of the defense they were playing would look a lot better if Kevin Durant wasn't hitting ridiculous 20-footers with a hand in his face. Like, you think if KD just misses like 3 or 4 of those and he's still like 14 of 27 or whatever instead of 17 of 20 whatever, this is like a pretty easy win going away, but he was just so hot. He kept them in the game, but I think like there's just nothing you could do against him when he's playing defense like that. I didn't really think there was a ton of defensive breakdowns. Maybe offensively, malaisical is especially in that like 4-5 minute stretch in the fourth quarter where Jake and I were on the playback. I think we were pretty sure they were pissing the win away during that time. And then I think Joe took a timeout and they came back out. They started running some actions and they shut the door with like 3 or 4 minutes left. And so it was kind of a tale of like Jekyll and Hyde in the fourth quarter there, like the worst of the Celtics and the best of the Celtics in the same 8-minute stretch, which is like why this team can be frustrating at times. But, they got it done. Anytime you get it done on the road against Kevin Durant, without KP, they were missing Booker. I think that's kind of, fairly even. That's a good win, dude. That's a really good win, especially coming off 2 losses.
Yeah, look, the fourth quarter, everything is just so magnified in those moments, and it feels like specifically for the Celtics. Like, you watch a lot of other NBA games, and things just get tight and messy down the stretch for pretty much everyone, except for the Nuggets. Like, it's like every team has their issues. Even the Miami Heat have terrible numbers in the fourth quarter this year. It's like partly because it's such a small sample, defense gets cranked up. But I will say that in the fourth quarter, it was like us yelling at the screen, go faster. And it's been something that we haven't yelled and something we've talked about that has been not an issue this year, has been the pace in the fourth quarter. And, people are like, why is Joe letting them play slow? Go back and watch the fourth quarter. Joe is just on the sideline, just like jumping up and down, swinging his arms.
Third base coach, like, go.
That's right.
As Tatum just looks at him like he's speaking a different language, and it's like, slow it down, Joe. Got it under control. And then eventually, as you said, calls a timeout, and we really got the best of both worlds, or the worst of one and best of the other world in clutch time there. We were weird Tatum game, but we won every quarter. We lost except for the third. We lost by 3 points. The fourth quarter numbers are actually like pretty good. They were like 57%, 30 points in the fourth quarter, and so overall, honestly, it was a good game. And like every time the Phoenix kind of pushed into the lead, it never got to below 5 points, I believe. And so like it felt scary because we lost 2 whole games in a row. But honestly, it's a nice performance to pull out a win when there's a superstar like KD just like going off in the fourth.
Yeah, absolutely. 5 is what it got to, and this was kind of like the, the icing on the cake play-wise towards the end of the game. Let me just run that back again. So, sorry guys. So Jaylen Brown with the ball. Yeah, horns action. There you go. And just Drew slipping that screen there, pulling in the defense, and then just kicking it out to Al, who finally hits a 3. I don't know about you guys, but as soon as the ball was headed towards Al in the corner there, like you just knew that the OG was going to knock that one down. Just like in that context, under those circumstances, Al's career in the rear vision mirror, like you just knew that he was going to knock that one down, and of course he did, and it was amazing. But just to see those guys go to a bit of an action there, a bit of an off-ball action, and generate a good look rather than go ISO in crunch time. It was within 5 points within the final, 5 minutes, 2 to 5 minutes? I think it was the 2-minute mark precisely of this game. And to see them actually run a set and get like just a decisively open shot was genuinely satisfying.
I know. I don't know why it took them so long to kind of get to doing that. And I think we'll talk about like Derrick White and stuff. But even he got a chance in clutch time and he turned it over too. But those little short roll screens where Tatum's been so good on the passing, just they weren't going to it. And Drew in the short roll's been solid down there. And fine. Yeah. Horford, biggest shot of the game. 0 for 6 going into that 3 in the corner. And you sound like you're more confident than me, or maybe you're more confident today that it was going in than you were yesterday. But I was
honestly watching yesterday. I was just like, yeah, he's got this shit. Like,
okay,
absolutely. I knew that he'd missed every shot to that point, but it was just so open, and you could just see he just took his time a little bit more. He had some arc on the shot, like it looked good out of his hand. Where like all of his shots prior to that looked so flat, and he just looked like he was in rhythm on this one. So he was confident. I was confident in him. It went down. Never in doubt, as we like to say after these somewhat close wins. But the Phoenix defense, I have to say, one of the worst ones we've seen in recent memory. To begin the fourth quarter, first couple of possessions, Celtics coming down the floor with the ball. They're in zone, and we just walk into 2 of the widest open threes ever. One which, like Derrick White was just literally strolling, like down to the beach, down in the center of the court, just kicks it across to the wing to a wide open Jayson Tatum, who's just so open. The defense does not react at all, and that is just like mesmerizingly stupid from a defensive perspective there. And that was kind of the trend that the Phoenix defense set all game, where there just wasn't a lot of resistance. Particularly Nurkic was, I don't want to say dominant on both ends early in the game, but he was throwing his size around a little bit and definitely causing some problems for the Celtics. Down the stretch, like for the majority of the fourth quarter, Nurkic didn't play at all, Spoonie, and he felt like it was quite advantageous from the Suns' perspective. Why was that? Why do you think they didn't play him down the stretch there? Because he was giving us issues.
Yeah, so I think we went into this like hunting matchups with Jayson Tatum offense that was not working, but it can work. But we were hunting the Beal matchup. But Beal can stay in front of Tatum and force him to take pull-ups over the top of him, right? The guys that I love Tatum attacking when we're hunting mismatches is bigs, because he can just blow right by them. So I think when they went to that kind of switch everything defense, sort of in the middle, 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter, they can't have Nurkic out there because we're just going to find the Nurkic-Tatum matchup, and then Tatum's just going to bust right by him, and then it's basically over, right? He's going to find a shooter. He's going to get all the way to the rim and hopefully finish, although that doesn't feel like a guarantee last night. But that's the only thing that makes sense to me, because I thought offensively he was really a problem for us. Like, he's just too big for Al Horford. He was getting on the offensive glass. He's a great passer, and he's an incredible screen setter too. And that just makes so much room for KD and Beal. And that force, you saw a bunch of Nurkic screens where they were so good, we didn't want to give up the switch, but we just had to switch Horford onto KD. And KD was, I'm sorry, Al, but he was lighting Al up a few times, man.
He was.
At least in the first three quarters. I thought Al did a little bit better down the stretch. But so that's the only thing I can think is, like, they knew we'd match up hunt him with Tatum, and that's the exact type of guy Tatum just feasts on switches.
Yeah, I think that's where you get the worst of the Celtics. And I think we talked about it on the weaknesses episode. Like, if you can go to a switch everything defense, if you just want to try and force Tatum and Jaylen into what we saw at times in the fourth quarter was the ISO ball stuff. And, like, it can be effective if the matchups are there. And they definitely had success. Like, Tatum still goes 5 for 10 in the fourth quarter. Man, his fourth quarter numbers look very, very good relative to what it kind of felt like in the overall game. But yeah, so if you can go to a switch everything defense, that's going to, especially when Porzingis is not out there, that's going to be when you can find success for a team like Phoenix where their defense isn't good. Like, of all the teams that could potentially maybe make the finals in the West, Phoenix might be in that conversation if, like, they get all their guys healthy and they go on a run. I think it's a long shot, but, like, that's the type of team that I would enjoy making it out of the West, that, like, can't guard, like, all three, like, and, like, they're searching for answers because their big man's kind of a liability. That's what you like to see. Actually, and he's a big Bosnian dude. He was getting guys caught on screens all day. But yeah, Al Horford still out rebounded in there.
Yeah,
Right.
12 in the first half, the most for a player over 37 years old since Tim Duncan a while back.
What a
Pretty,
stat.
Wow.
I know, I love that. I think it's Dick Light that we have to
I was
thank for
gonna
that
say,
one,
surely
as
it's
it usually is.
The big dick.
Yeah.
So we call him around here.
yeah. Speaking of, let's transition. I don't know where I'm going with that. Jayson Tatum, you mentioned the wild 4 turnovers. Very, I think, like, uncharacteristic is probably, like, thematically the one word you could choose for his, maybe the last 2 games, where he still ends with these sexy stat lines as Spooty disappears under the desk.
Sorry.
You're good. And, box score wise, you look at it and you're like, oh, okay, I guess he had a pretty good game. And that's just, it speaks to the level of player that Jayson Tatum is, where, like, a bad game is still jumps off the page statistically. And yet it's not the Jayson Tatum that we've come to know and love through this season, Jake. Losing the ball, a lot of unforced errors, like losing his dribble, dribbling off his feet, that kind of thing. What do you think's going on with Tatum? Again, like, with full acknowledgement, like, he is still quite good, particularly down the stretch in this game. Don't want to, like, attract any haters by talking shit about Jayson Tatum on this one, but he hasn't been his, like, near perfect self lately.
So yeah, the last 3 games he has not been great. But I will say yesterday that, and the thing about the Denver game that was the most frustrating was that, like, my favorite thing about Tatum is that he does everything. It's the rebounding, it's the defense. Like, so when he's not, a flawless offensive player. Like, SGA, Luka, offensively are just more consistent when it comes to, like, the offensive end. But what they don't have is the elite rebounding, the elite defense that Tatum has. And we didn't see it in the Denver game, but what we did see from Tatum in this game was he was kind of everywhere. Like, KD was hitting shots, but, like, they didn't want to go near Tate. Like, that was the matchup they wanted to try and avoid for KD. It's like, they're comfortable going at pretty much anyone because he can shoot over the top of anyone. He still got Tatum a couple times, obviously, but, like, Tatum's defense is really good. On one of those turnovers where he threw it over Pritchard's head, he actually had an awesome free safety steal to go back the other way, and it was transition, and then he tacked and threw that left-hand pass over Pritchard's head. But the defense was still really good. I just think that players are going to have these stretches. Everyone's really frustrated with Tatum right now because the last 3 games have been loudly bad. In that the fourth quarter against the Cavs, 1 for 9, bad. The Denver game, bad, and that's one of the biggest games of the season. And then today and yesterday, I didn't think bad was the word to describe his game. I went back and watched the 4 turnovers today. Yeah, he had the pick and roll dribble off his foot, and the 2 weird ones where one of them was Derrick White. It's just it's just a simple pass to the wing with no pressure. He just missed it, and then the Pritchard one, left hand pass, skip pass to Pritchard over his head. It's just uncharacteristic, and it's not something that I think that we have to be concerned about. Those aren't turnovers that he's been making all year. He's having his best year from a turnover perspective in from a raw numbers perspective since 2019-20. Since he's become a high usage guy, this is easily his best turnover season. And from January to 3 games ago, we've kind of been all on the same page in that he's playing the best basketball of his life as far as letting the game come to him and being able to take over when he wants to. The last couple games, he hasn't been able to quite get to the takeover mode that he has been able to. I'm not really worried at all, really, about who Tatum is, and it's just, man, and this is probably in your article, Spoonie, but the life of a team like this team, where every loss just is so magnified compared to, because we're just winning so many games, and so you lose the context of the rest of the season, and you lose the context of the rest of the NBA. I forget. I saw the tweet. I don't have the tweet here, but someone pulled together the worst 3-game stretch for every superstar from a field goal percentage perspective, and everybody has these little stretches, and it's just Tatum and the Celtics in particular, because they haven't won the title. It's just see, this is why they're never going to do it, while ignoring the context of actually everybody does this.
Yeah, and even first of all, he won February Player of the Month, right? So we're 10 days away from he had the second best month in the NBA, right? So and then in March, even though he's had these 3 bad games, maybe has not been up, he's 25.8 points, 7.6 rebounds, 5 assists on 45.7, 56.8 from 3, and 92% from the line, plus 14 net rating, 62% true shooting percentage. So this is one of his worst stretches of the season, and it's still pretty damn elite. Obviously, some of that's propped up by a few of the early games in March, but I just don't know how you can be worried about this guy anymore. I think he's moved beyond that. We saw him in the worst way in the third quarter of that Game 6 in Philly, and he dug himself out of it in a heartbeat and hit 4 threes and dragged us to Game 7, where he proceeded to drop 50 and win the series. It's done. We can't be worried about his cold stretches anymore. We know he does this. Everybody does this. His maybe are a little bit uglier, or maybe that's because we are the ones who watch every single game of his career, and we don't watch every single game of Ant Edwards' career, who's on my fantasy team and is way worse about inconsistency than Jayson Tatum, by the way. So he'll be fine. And hey, the good thing about 2 of his turnovers, the passes were so bad that they went out of bounds and they weren't live ball turnovers. So
no transition.
Right, exactly.
That's smart. Heady stuff from Jayson Tatum. And Jaylen Brown, who we're about to talk about, has had multiple stretches just like this within the confines of this season as well, where we're what's going on with Jaylen Brown? We're about to talk about him. He is world-beating right now and incredible, and has the attention of a huge portion of the mainstream NBA media just because of how dominant he's been. So, the player production output, it does fluctuate, and we're fortunate, doing a podcast like this, for example, there's so much sample size, there's so many data points, 82 of them in a regular season, that we can be this reactive after every single game. And I'm sure within 2 to 5 games, we'll be talking about the Tatum turnaround, and wasn't it hilarious how worried we were after 3 games to begin March, and that kind of thing. So it's just the roller coaster and the journey of a single NBA regular season. And then, like you guys said, Tatum, he's just under a different microscope with the expectations, with the potential and talent that he's flashed, and the lack of winning a title thus far. So it's just the lens under which we look at Jayson Tatum, for better or for worse. He did have a stretch in this game where it was 2 consecutive possessions first quarter where he went out and like kind of torched Kevin Durant. The first one where he drove at him, crossover, pull up, midi, splash, next possession down, step, huge, like leaping, bounding step back three. Definitely not a good shot, but like hit it over KD, who is like a self-proclaimed and self-demonstrated hooper, hit that as well. I thought that was a cool moment for Jayson Tatum, who's obviously looked up to Kevin Durant since forever and had this moment of just like, I'm kind of the big daddy now, for lack of a better term. It was cool.
Oh, dude, it was awesome. And even, honestly, I just like quickly looked at like Kevin Durant's game log here. Like, literally 2 games ago, he goes 14 for 34, which is a 41% field goal versus Tatum's 39% field goal, but only 8 rebounds and 5 assists, as opposed to Tatum's 10 and 7. And the game before, he's 6 for 15. They lose to the Thunder by 8. And like, it's just the roller coaster.
6 of 15. He only took 15 shots.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you imagine a superstar ever doing that? What are the odds? Yeah. But yeah, to your point about the, are we moving to Jaylen Brown now? I think.
Yeah, feel free. Let's go. I was just trying to come up with a segue, but it sounds like you're doing it for me.
The smooth segue of, should we just move on to this Jaylen Brown guy? Who
I was going to go with, speaking of superstars, but yeah, you're doing a better job with the beat.
So I'm really glad that Ben's constantly stalking the Celtics social media profiles and making sure we get all the possible information, because I'm really glad that I know that Jaylen Brown weighs 239 pounds. I knew it. My eyes and my soul understood the dimensional level that we had reached this season, but like to have like the tangible numbers backing up the girth, I think is important just for my own reckoning, because that dude looks like a 239 pound superstar out there every single night, dude. Like, he is murdering everyone. I mean, like, the peak of it is what he did to Aaron Gordon. The way that we've been successful attacking Aaron Gordon in the past has kind of been like the speed of Tatum and Jaylen, and Aaron Gordon's defense has gone to a new level in Denver, and so that's been something that's like been more difficult to attack. But Jaylen Brown being able to physically move him is just insane. But then you have a game like yesterday where it's like, okay, Bradley Beal, anytime he had him, it was just in the basket, dude. This new thing that he's doing, it's like these little right hand, left hand, little push shot, hook shots from the 8 to 6 foot range. Money every time. Every time he gets a mismatch at the post, like the post has been awesome for Tatum, but I feel like it's almost been more important for Jaylen, because it just completely takes away the turnover stuff. And his efficiency and consistency are both just at a place where they haven't been before. And I think it's more important for the playoffs. Like, we come out of the 2022 playoffs after that Miami series, and the question is not how we have no questions about Tatum. There's no one questioning Tatum's ability to help this team get to the finals again and win a title. It's like, can we win with Jaylen Brown as a number 2? And he gets a Supermax contract, and everyone is clowning the Celtics. Worst contract in NBA history, yada, yada, yada. And he took that contract seriously. Like, he has definitely taken the responsibility of what that means and come out both ends, gotten better, best basketball of his career. And I think for the playoffs and the success of this team, that is probably going under the radar right now, because we're all confident in Jayson Tatum. If he gives us the performance that he gave us in the last year's playoffs, we get the same Tatum, and we get this version of Jaylen, plus Porzingis, plus Drew Holiday. I feel good.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, you got to be hyped.
Yes, go on back.
We're winning the championship. So I think the post and a semi-transition do the same thing for Jaylen Brown, where it allows him either there is no help to come to swipe at his dribble or pick off passes in semi-transition, right? Defense isn't set. They're still trying to match up. So he knows he's just one-on-one with the guy in front of him, and he's either going to beat him with speed or strength. And, like, mainly it's just been strength recently. Like, he looks like, dude, I was calling him Jerome Bettis on the playback because like people are just bouncing off of him, dude. He's like the bus driving down the lane, dude. And the post up too, like, you know, you spread the floor out. It's a slower pace, and the help's got to come from long distances, so that cuts down on his turnovers. And he just really, his turnovers got to be like 2.2 a game. I haven't checked in the last week or so, but they are really low for him since he's become one of these high volume stars. And on post ups, if you have minimum 30 possessions on Synergy, 12th most efficient in the league. Jayson Tatum, 15th most efficient. Jaylen Brown, first KP, fourth Al Horford. So we were post-up monsters on this team, dude. Yeah, but JB and JT essentially the exact same points per possession on post-ups. And they're killing people. And it's so difficult because your best wing defender is going to be on Jayson Tatum, right? And then Jaylen Brown has – how many teams have two elite wing defenders? It's basically just the Clippers. So their main matchup is like Bradley Beal on Jaylen Brown, like Royce O'Neal on Jaylen Brown. Like, not those dudes stand no chance. And he lit them. He even missed like 3 or 4 easy layups to start the game too. So his line could have even been way better than it was, and he still had 27 on a pretty efficient night.
It looked like he was getting fouled quite a lot as well, or at least he thought that. He obviously got quite frustrated and incurred that tech
On that
early
three,
in the game.
dude. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And then he came back as angry Jaylen on the next possession and got some easy money. Also thought he got fouled. That's where the tech came from. But even on those post-ups for Jaylen, the patience in which he gets to a spot where he can get his shot off, like he fights for like every inch of advantage towards the bucket, even against Bradley Beal, who was like physically putting up, I thought, an impressive amount of physical resistance to stop Jaylen getting closer to the hoop. He fought for every inch as he sort of inched closer and closer to the hoop, and he's been doing that all season. And just that patience and the confidence and the awareness of the court, knowing that he's not going to get the ball stripped from under him or whatever while he's focusing on getting to that point on the court, I think is a really nice development for Jaylen as well. NBA University had a really interesting tweet coming out last night. They said over the last 15 games, so basically since the All-Star break, Jaylen Brown has 66.7% field goal percentage on 8.2 half-court drives per game, averaging 4.3 field goal attempts per game on those drives. That's the highest efficiency in the NBA. He's also only turned the ball over on 3.1% of those drives. He's been an efficiency bomb attacking off the dribble in the half-court since February 1st. And on top of that, since the All-Star game, just over 28 points per game on 42.3% from three, just 1.5 turnovers per game, bunch of assists and rebounds as well. Despite the poor free throw shooting, 63% true shooting. He's got a 24 plus 24 net rating. But yeah, that free throw shooting, 64.4% on nearly 6 attempts per game. So he's almost the perfect basketball player, but the free throws, like I said it last game, they've got to bring out someone from the coaching staff and have him like post them up from the free throw line to increase his efficiency there. What's going on there, Jake? Like, it's kind of always been problematic for Jaylen, but it seems worse than ever at this point.
I mean, obviously those numbers are a little skewed by the Denver game where he goes 7 for 14. So like there's a bit of volume.
Denver game.
Volume there. It's like, Give me 65% in the Denver game. He would have made a couple more. It kind of there are swings with Jaylen Brown's free throw percentage and like more like his 3-point numbers. It feels like a normal player's 3-point shot. It's like his field goal kind of like he'll go a few games in a row where he's making his free throws. He actually made 3 free throws on one of the 3-point shots that he was fouled on, which was surprising. Which means that he ended up going 1 for 4 on the remaining free throws.
Just Jaylen things right there.
Oh man, yeah, it's tough. Like he's doing everything besides hitting free throws, and it's like if that's the problem, then I'll take everything else. He's even offensive rebounding more than he has been. 1.5 offensive rebounds per game over the last 10. Like yeah, he's playing the best basketball of his career, man. Like it's really incredible the fact that he's been able to go to another level. Like. I was a hater apparently and didn't believe that he could reach like a legit new level. Like he's really like upped his game to a point where the All-Star thing wasn't really a question, and then All NBA he's gonna be in the running, especially because of this 65 game thing. Like Jaylen and Jayson, they just play a lot of games.
Yeah, and he got back cut last night, and it was like shocking to see it because it had been so long. He's been that locked in defensively.
Playmaking as well, as we run a couple of clips from late in the game. These are both from the fourth quarter. Just drive and kick straight out to Payton Pritchard. Simple stuff, but like his awareness of how the defense reacts to his play style is just elite. And 2 very different assists. 1 corner kick out to Payton Pritchard, another lofted oop to Luke Kornet, who we will get to, because you could refer to this down the stretch as the Luke Kornet game, based on how awesome he was on this one. But suffice to say, Jaylen Brown has been incredible, and that doesn't look like it's going away anytime soon. This was a very Derrick White game. JJ Redick was Derrick White gasming all over the broadcast table there on this one. Spoonie, thoughts on Derrick White? Because it seems like some of his game is like fully back, while, for example, the 3-point shot has just completely dissolved lately.
Yeah, well, I could just see the anger in Jake's eyes when JJ Redick was fawning over his guy Derrick White. Like, back off, buddy. Like, am I gonna have to jump in and fight him for you, Jake, or with you, I should say? We'd probably need like 7 of us to take JJ. But I think the big thing for Derrick White is that he needs to remain aggressive, and I'm not breaking new ground here. Like, that's always been his problem, right? Pop's even talked about it multiple times. And like, if the threes aren't going in, he was 0 for 3.
What a comment.
It was a great comment that I'm gonna move on from very quickly. Like, he was 0 for 3 from 3, whatever. He was going to the rim. He was making plays. He had 9 assists, which I didn't even really notice, but that's just the nature of Derrick White. He just makes the right play so often that he's going to rack up assists. Only 2 turnovers, and I felt like he had the ball in his hands way more than he has recently. And good things happen for the Celtics when that's the case. So I'd like to see him to continue to remain aggressive and just kind of fill up the stat sheet. And dude, this cat must do yoga, because that block he had,
gosh.
like that contortionist shit, like I don't even know how he got to that ball.
That's one of the best blocks I've ever seen. I tweeted out it was better than the Anthony Edwards block, like the one that he had on Neesmith where he hit his head on the rim. Like, that's just, he can jump.
Get it?
high
You
block.
can jump. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Like,
Yeah,
I could do that
whoop-de-doo.
if I could jump that high. Yes, but I can't. So I didn't. But Derrick White, the fact that, like, and what's crazy too is, like, when you're watching these transition opportunities against guys like, I think it was Royce O'Neal, right, who he blocked on that one.
Yes.
There are certain players like Royce O'Neal, role players, guys that are not stars. Even stars, he can do this too as well, right? Like, but there are certain players I'm betting on D White to make this play in transition. Like, his transition defense, his rim protection in transition is just absurd. But yes, he was so good to see Derrick White being Derrick White. And I guess the question is, like it was only the 8 field goal attempts, but yeah, the 9 assists. I mean, this is a great Derrick White game. But we're all yelling, like, down the stretch, why does Derrick White not have the ball more? And like, we've been talking how it feels like Derrick White's been getting, is it getting phased out, or is this kind of on Derrick White as well? And that's like going to be the question. I think it's maybe a little bit of both, but I looked at the numbers today here, and so on the season, Derrick White's usage is 18.2%. His fourth quarter usage has been 19.5%, but last 10 games, overall usage 15.3, fourth quarter usage 12.6. So that's probably the most important thing to me, is like it goes down from 19.5 on the season in the fourth quarter down to 12.6 in the fourth quarter over the last 10. And we all know how safe we feel with Derrick White making decisions for this Boston Celtics team. And like, when we can create a play, get the defense moving, and then we get the ball to Jayson and Jaylen, that's when this team is like at their best. It doesn't have to be only Derrick White in the fourth quarter. Like, Jaylen and Jayson, you know, the Derrick White two-man game, both, you know, with Derrick White as the screener or Tatum as the screener. But Derrick White involved in some way is always good. And like, they've gone away from it a little bit, which I'm just going to assign blame to everybody. Derrick, Tatum, Joe, I think it's kind of on everyone. But it's very clear that we need more Derrick White, and shout out Missoula Maulers on Twitter for pulling this meme together here. But it's Darth Vader, and it's, I find your lack of Derrick White disturbing. Yes, that's me to you, Joe Missoula. But I think Joe's aware, and we'll see more D White as we get further through. And someone asked this question in the Discord, which I'll throw to you guys. Is it just a little bit of like, we know the power of Derrick White in the clutch and his decision-making. Like, how much are we holding our cards to our chest, you know, before we get to the playoffs?
What do you think, Spoonie?
I think Joe's playing a little coy recently. I do. I think that there was some of that in the Denver game, too. He really didn't try anything particularly interesting or different to guard Denver, and I feel like that's the team that you will need to bust out some weird stuff at times in like a series in order to keep off balance. So I would not be shocked if he's just like, Derrick, buddy, we know you're always going to make the right play. We know you're going to be perfect down the stretch. let's give Tatum some more reps. Let's give Drew Holiday some more reps, because it feels like Drew's been more involved recently too, in the fourth quarter especially. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's kind of the move, because like Derrick's always going to do the right thing, and you just want to get everybody comfortable with the ball in their hands late in games, because you just never, we saw it. Marcus Smart had 2 game-winning shots in what, it was a game 5 in Philadelphia, so or game 4 in Philadelphia. Like, that shit happens, and you want to make sure everybody's comfortable when it does.
Totally. Yeah, I think that sometimes people have a tendency to overthink these things, and we did this whole Occam's Rozier thing on this show. Simplest explanation is often the most likely one, and I think in this case, like, yeah, we know what we have with Derrick White. Joe obviously knows that, and we're looking to explore what we have elsewhere, and in recent cases, like with Drew Holiday, like you mentioned. So I think that's probably the most likely and simple explanation, and therefore, if I had to guess, which is what we're doing, that's probably the case here with Derrick White. We know how good he is. We know we can rely on him when we need to. Look, we're going to come back in a minute. We're going to finish our recap of the Suns game. We're going to talk about Luke Kornet and Payton Pritchard and some missed points. Later, we're going to get to the injury report for the Portland game, which has just come out, and it is very extensive. And we're going to talk about some of the things, the finer points, and what we want to see improve with this team during this final stretch of the season. But first, a quick word from our sponsors.
The NBA playoffs are coming, and the action on the floor is heating up. Whether it's these sad little teams that haven't locked up the number 1 seed and are fighting for seeding, or tournament season, there's no shortage of high-stakes basketball moments this time of year. Get in on the excitement with Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app, where you can turn your hoops knowledge into serious cash. Prize Picks even offers injury insurance, so that your entries stay live even if one of your players gets injured. For basketball games, if you have a player who exits in the first half and does not return in the second, that player projection won't count against you, and the rest of your entry stays live. Porzingis sitting on a back-to-back, you know we're going for more on Horford points, rebounds, and assists. Download the app today and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Download the app today and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy.
Prize Picks, pretty cool.
I swear, when I was recording that, I was like, trying to yell. What is the difference between recording the podcast live and recording that on my own? But apparently, I have just a natural ASMR ad read voice, which
yeah, shout out to Amit, the CLNS producer, who's putting the sexy filter on Jake's voice there for this one.
Yeah, the Al Green filter. Did I just say, Ozra, glad you guys changed the ad back to your voices. You don't like Gary Tangway calling in from a prison payphone, I guess? Like, it's like, what are you saying, Gary?
Yeah.
Anyway.
There's a smooth voice, though, if you want one.
Yeah, true.
Facts. Luke Kornet, can we afford his max extension next year, Spoonie, after this incredible performance in this game?
I'm thinking maybe sign and trade him for Bam. What do you guys think? Something like that.
That might be the move.
We can live with what you lose. Yeah, man.
Yeah. Look, we lose some size there, some great passing, but I guess we'll be okay with Bam. He's been freaking awesome, dude. Like 14-6, legitimately kind of felt like we were sort of teetering a little bit, and then Luke came in and we went on like this nice little run. He's just catching every lob now. I feel like he had butterfingers last year. And his hands are just so much better. He's finally rebounding like a man who's 7'11" should. And he only had 1 block in the stat sheet, but I felt like he had more. He at least he definitely affected a ton of shots around the rim, and Phoenix did not really do a good job of getting him out into space and attacking him like, say, Cleveland did in that fourth quarter in that Cleveland loss. So, just, again, shout out to Luke. Like, the part of this is the expectations are quite low, but he's blown way past them all season.
He's great, man. And this is why I was someone who was like, we don't need a third big. We don't need to use resources on bringing in a third big, because he's great. I'm glad that we got Tillman. But obviously, there's a plan in place for what Tillman means to this team. I'm not super sure. I thought Kornet was going to be like out of the rotation with Tillman coming in. But what's the argument? Like, the way that he helps this offense in particular, like, I think that they're similar offensive players. The way that Kornet, he's just got really good chemistry in the pick and roll with everyone, especially Derrick, which, I mean, Derrick has great pick and roll chemistry with everybody, but specifically Kornet, he's got a really good sense of space, like around that spot. He sets his screen, and he's just like always in the right spot, makes the right decisions. Yeah, man, and the fact that he's playing big now And defensively, he's just solid as your third big, and in this scenario, backup big. Like, I've been someone that's, you joke about the max extension, but I've been like, I'm not sure he's played well enough that someone's going to be offering him more than a veteran's minimum. But does someone come in and offer him like $4 million as opposed to a veteran's minimum? Then maybe that is what happens. But we'll cross that bridge when it happens. But if that is something that happens, that means he's played really well for the Celtics, which is a really good thing.
Yeah.
And so I mean, you can't say enough about Luke Kornet, from the on-court to the off-court intangibles. Like, he's just all around. Like, you can't ask more for the third big on the Celtics.
Did you guys see that picture of him going around holding like Lord of the Rings?
Yes.
The book? Is that recent?
I think so. I think it must have been like while he was chilling at the hotel or whatever before this game. It looked like it was sunny Arizona sun behind him at the time, so I think it's recent. And a good omen as far as us winning the ring this year.
That's right.
Okay, that's well
One
done from
ring.
Ben there. Unsurprising. He's
beautiful.
like, yep. Join the lines.
Yes,
We're
of
locked in.
course. I always join the dots on these things. It's my strong suit, my forte. I think that the plan for Tillman is maybe a lot more matchup specific than we originally anticipated, where it's like, Luke, you are the backup big, you are the third big, and Tillman, the big T bag, when we've got a really specific matchup for you, if we've got maybe a quicker, more prominent center that is more of an offensive fulcrum, we will put you in to defend them, especially if we need you to switch on their screening actions. Whereas Kornet, when it's not that kind of matchup, it's just like, you're our guy every time. And he's becoming more and more fluid offensively, putting himself in the dunker's spot, putting himself in a position where guys like Derrick White and Drew Holiday can find him for dump-offs and things like that. So he is just really well suited to the guards on this team, and that's showing, especially in the last stretch of 10 games or so.
I wonder if it's like an injury-related thing with Tillman, because he's been someone that was why he fell in the draft, and that was why he's had injuries. He was injured when he got here in the trade, and like, just trying to bring him along really slowly, or maybe it is just the matchup stuff. Like, you think in a game like yesterday where you don't have Porzingis, like, you're going to see some Tillman, but you see zero, and whereas you see a fair bit of him in the Denver matchup when you have everybody healthy. It's interesting. I'm not mad at either way. Like, they clearly have an idea for him in certain matchups, but yeah, and it's also been great. Everybody in the chat and like people online, like, the narratives have finally turned on Luke. People have finally seen the light, in that from what you're getting from that spot is more than you're getting on most teams. Like, who do you want, Drew Eubanks or Luke Kornet? I don't know. I think it's Luke Kornet.
Eubanks. More like, you suck. He was fucking terrible. Minus 20, 0 for 0. He sucked. He was awful. Like, to be dwarved that badly by anyone, especially Luke Kornet, even though we were singing his praises, is terrible. Sorry,
I just
Spoony, I'll cut
remember
you off.
you said go on, Spoony, but I'll go after you.
No, I don't even. I'm still thinking about the big T bag.
Yeah, we're rolling with that one, people. Spread the word.
The Kornet eclipse. That's the only thing. And the problem is, he's getting positive reinforcement by everyone, especially like the national broadcast. It's like, look at him go, and it worked. And then like on the attempt that he did, I think it was Kevin Durant where he missed one. I don't even remember who it was, but like,
it was somebody good.
From exactly where he jumped from, or where he launched from, the rebound went exactly to where he was for the Kornet contest. Just stay there, dude. I refuse to believe that it's helping, and I would much prefer the 7'2" guy just rebounds as opposed to, like, it's driving me nuts, and I feel like I'm going insane.
You don't think Bradley Beal's jumper's affected by a guy 15 feet away from him jumping in the air? There's no way Bradley Beal, who is like an all NBA level, like elite 3-point shooter, all those numbers kind of dipped a little bit, but whatever. That is not affecting his shot. I'm sorry. Like, just fucking rebound, Luke.
Please.
You don't think, like, our first round matchups, there's going to be at least one assistant coach whose job is to, like, stand at the halfway point between the 3-point line and the hoop and just hold up inflatable arms to simulate shooting against the Kornet contest, the Eclipse?
Yes.
I think the findings are inconclusive at this point. I think sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It's a Kornet
almost like an
approach.
open jump shot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm not willing to shut it down at this point. Now, look, we've got to rush through these final points of the game and try and keep this within the hour mark. I think we're going to struggle. We might run a little bit long tonight. We do have to talk about. Payton
I was gonna
Pritchard?
say, do you want to just boot the improvement segment to we can do that whenever.
No, we'll see how we go. We'll just keep
All right.
rolling and
I'll shut
see
up.
if
What
we
am
get to
I
it.
doing?
No, I mean it's all good. It's all
Gotta
good.
hit the bus one, boys, quickly, and then we'll move on.
Yeah. So, I mean, Payton Pritchard, just very quickly, pretty impressive in this game. I think if he has his defensive flaws and vulnerabilities, but the amount of time that he shaves off the clock whenever he. Yeah, I just saw Mary's comment. We are going to try and spread that to Drew Carter. We're sort of one for three with getting names to Drew lately, so we'll keep trying there. But Payton Pritchard shaving time off the clock with his full court press on opposing guards, I think for some part makes up for his other defensive vulnerabilities, just that he forces teams to not get into their offense until this sort of 16 to 12 second mark. Hugely effective, and I think with that alone, there's room for him to play rather in the playoffs. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think Pritchard can play in the playoffs. There's going to be some matchups where he can't, and
Sure.
and Denver, maybe he can, but not when Jokic is on the court. Miami, he can, but not when Jimmy Butler's on the court. But he's been awesome, and he's gotten better. The latest development, I know someone's got the numbers in here, but he's now able to finish at the rim over big guys. He's got this he's been pushing dudes off and creating space at the rim and shooting around outstretched arms. He goes 2 for 4 from 3 here, but he's been awesome, dude. In that contract extension from Brad Stevens, the Brad Stevens special, dude, is just signing these guys to these contract extensions the year before they have their best year of their life. Continues to happen here. I think he's been awesome and exactly kind of what we expected coming into the season. Even not even shooting elite from 3. I know he goes 2 for 4 yesterday, but I think he's at 39% from 3, which is absolutely acceptable and good. But I think there's room for him to go on a 3-point run at some point too, just because we know the type of elite shooter that he is too.
Yeah, he's 38.5%, just because I just looked it up. But he's over 41% on catch and shoot, 33 on pull-ups. So that's really what it is. He's an elite catch and shoot guy. He's a 3-level scorer, gentlemen. 69.7% in the restricted area, better than Jayson Tatum, better than Jaylen Brown. He's shooting 50% from mid-range, better than Jayson Tatum. He's second on the team in field goal percentage on drives, better than Tatum, better than Jaylen Brown. 4.1 drives a game too. That's not nothing. That's actually pretty decent volume. He's had 260 drives this year. So Pritchard has just evolved into this spark plug on both ends. And what he does defensively to slow the other team down, he does the exact opposite for the Celtics, where it's you're never worried about pace when Pritchard's there, because the second he gets it, he'll just fly up the court. And even if he just stops and sets up the offense, it's all right, because we're running the offense with 20 seconds on the shot clock instead of 16, and that helps you get better shots. So shout out PP. What a contract. I took a lot of shit in my group chat when that contract was signed for defending it. So
Yep.
I'm on top of the world, man.
Let's go, dude.
Yeah. I'm on top of the tip of the PP.
I was about to say the amount of dick jokes in the chat right now. I'm we brought it on ourselves.
Oh, yeah.
What have we done?
Yes.
What have we done? But it's great. We love everyone in the chat. Thank you for joining us. All right, missed points very quickly, and then we'll hit the improvements during the stretch run here. So very quickly, we mentioned Al's clutch 3, his elite sort of post-Tim Duncan level old man rebounding. That was incredible. I also wanted to point out 5-2 in this brutal stretch. So we talked about it. We hyped it up a lot coming out of the All-Star break that from the Knicks game onwards, ending with the Suns game, maybe the toughest stretch of the season. We've just wrapped that part of the season up with this Suns game, going 5-2 in that stretch. So nearly 6-1 with giving up that 20-point lead against Cleveland there. But I would say ultimately pretty happy with the results. Could have been better, obviously, but going 5-2 in quote-unquote the most difficult stretch of the season, pretty good result. I think something that we all need to stop and think about coming out of some of the most disappointing outcomes of the season thus far as well. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Hey, that means we won that series easily, 5-2. We even got an extra win win right there. We didn't even need the
Bonus.
fifth win, and we got it anyway. Yeah, easily could have been 7-0 if a couple of things go the other way there. So totally fine stretch, and this team continues to just rack up wins no matter which way you slice it. Winning is the most important thing, and they just keep putting them together in every possible way. So it's all you can really ask for.
Yeah, we got a little injury luck, but how many times have we seen this team where the opponent has guys missing and then they just throw up a complete dud? So other than the Cleveland game, like the way they lost that game's annoying, but 5-2 that's a great little run against that caliber of opponents for sure.
Now, as we look down the barrel of the stretch run, obviously this team has been great, but obviously we want to see some things improve between now and the playoffs in an ideal world. So we each kind of hit our run sheet with a couple of points each on what we'd like to see improve between now and the postseason. Spoonie, we'll start with you. What do you got?
All right, I just want to see us drive a little bit more. We are not a team that drives a lot. Part of that's just because we choose to post up more, and we do a lot of like the short roll stuff. But in the last 15 games, we're like dead last with a bullet in drives per game at 34.5, and we're at 39 per game for the season. I'd like to see us just get to the rim just a little bit more often, get downhill just a little bit more, and like less than 35 drives a game. It's just not enough for an elite offense. Like, it's bizarre how they kind of play offense in some ways, but like, love to see Tatum especially get downhill more often in this last stretch run here.
Yep, I think that's a universally wanted thing out of
Yeah.
specific. Jaylen's certainly buoying those numbers too. So, and we've talked about that, and you hit it. Like, a lot of the stuff closer to the basket comes from post ups and the short roll stuff. So even if it's not necessarily driving, but like getting Derrick White to initiate, and then Tatum, he's catching it in the short roll, and then he can make those like little moves from there. Like, even if it's like 10-foot jumpers or, you know, post ups, or, you know, he's really like getting those little spin moves, catching in the post, and then finishing over guys there. Absolutely, more drives would be very welcomed.
I struggled to come up with anything original, which my biggest detractors will say is very typical of me. But things that have been dominating the headlines recently, such as let's run actual plays in critical late game possessions like we just did against the Suns. I think there's a huge learning and takeaway, which I'm sure people who work for the Celtics who are much brighter than me are fully aware of. But we saw it bear fruit against the Suns now, as opposed to a Tatum ISO shot down the stretch there in the dying moments of the game. He has a 36.5 effective field goal percentage in crunch time situations this season, 48% true shooting in crunch time. So there's clearly better options league-wide, and especially within the Boston Celtics roster for us to go to. So that to me is a huge and obvious and easily addressed improvement point.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely. Ben, I'm just reading your plays in the run sheet here, and I was distracted by more PP rim jokes in the chat there. So.
I know it's hard. Whoops.
Look, but I will say, like, with Tatum, why it feels like he doesn't post up in the clutch. Like, he'll go to that in the first like 3.5 quarters, and then he's handling the ball. Like, I'd like to see him, if he gets that Beal matchup, right? Move the ball, then go post up with Beal on you. That seems like an easy way where you're not dribbling 27 feet from the rim with a dude who can get into your handle. So absolutely, totally agree. And that should especially boost his true shooting if the dude can finally get a call here once in a while.
Yeah.
What else you guys got?
All right. Well, I think just on the back of that, like Tatum embracing physicality a little bit more, I think, as well. I don't know if it was a little bit like he got up for the Warriors game, and he's mentally probably ready for the playoffs a little bit. Like, I think he knows like the type of load that he's going to play. I did enjoy like him like asking Joe if he could play the entire second half yesterday, and just being like, I just want to win the game. And obviously it wasn't perfect for the whole way, but like doing all those little things, I think you're getting closer to embracing that kind of stuff. And it felt like trying to kind of enforce his will on the game. It just didn't quite work as well as we would have liked. But like everybody wanted to be more aggressive, and he took 28 shots, and only not like percentage wise, like his threes to non-threes, like he took 9 3-point attempts, which is kind of in line with how many he takes per game anyway. But when you compare it to how many field goals, where he's only taking 19 per game on the season, and that's 28. So the percentage of threes down. So he was trying to do more in different spots. So I like that. But Tatum embracing physicality, not sure we'll see it before the playoffs, because I think that maybe that's kind of where he's at this point.
Yeah, I think that's a really good one because, we've seen that so much with Jaylen Brown over this recent stretch, and we know that actually someone posted this in our Discord, a clip from, was it Hoops Tonight with Jayson Tatum? I hope I'm getting that right.
Yeah.
I should have written that down.
Yeah.
Where he's basically saying, like, Jayson Tatum is a very similar athlete to Jaylen Brown, which I don't know how much I agree with that, but similar enough where... Yeah, but he could absolutely be imposing his physicality a lot more. And I do think we'll see that in the postseason. We've seen it in postseasons past and even within the confines of this season. So, on one hand, I want to say, well, he's just saving it for the playoffs. But if he were, then why would he insist on playing more than 40 minutes in this game? So it can't go both ways. What do you reckon, Spoonie?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't know. Jaylen is like just a incredible athlete, and Tatum is not anywhere. He's like a slightly above average athlete, but I actually do kind of buy the theory that he's not going full tilt to the rim. But that's a learned skill, right? Like, you're not just good at finishing through contact. You need to practice that. So I would like to see him dial that up a little bit more. But I wonder how much of it is like he's just not getting a whistle right now, and maybe that's his own fault. But still, like, it sucks to go to the rim and get hit hard and then not get a foul called and have to get back up and do it all over again. But hey, dude, that's like part of being a superstar. Everybody goes through that. Like, Jokic gets hacked like 5 times a possession, and he barely gets calls too. So I'd like to definitely think now's the time to dial that physicality back up in time for the playoffs for sure.
I only have dumb ones left. I'll give you one of them, and then I'll shut up. But we need to improve our psychological leverage over Bucks fans because they've been winning some games lately.
Yeah.
You might say fraudulently, Jake. Most recently, earlier against the Clippers without Paul George, without Kawhi Leonard. They had a 22-hour turnaround with the daylight savings change coming off a back-to-back. The Clippers, that is, after playing the Bulls yesterday. Bucks have won some games. Their fans very vocal. I think coming from the standpoint of like, oh no, I think we might be a bit shit this year, and suddenly they've looked good, and now they're very vocal in response to that. We do have a Bucks game coming up, 20th of March. That's our opportunity to be like, actually, you ain't shit, and we're going to reassert our dominance over you in this one.
Yeah, if I had to pick one game to win for the rest of the season, like, it's so easily that one, which I hate that there's going to be like this extra pressure on like a single regular season game amidst the schedule, which, kind of anything can happen in that one game spot. But I'm not sure. I mean, Dame's kind of had a couple of good games. He's also continued to be like kind of inconsistent. They lost to the Lakers without LeBron, and D'Angelo Russell put 44 on their head, and they couldn't stop him. And then they also lost by 1 million to the Warriors. So like, they're 10-9 in the Doc Rivers era. So to me, they're closer to the Schadenfreude report than they are to the celebration report that we don't have, obviously. So yeah, I'm not sure I see it, but I'm with you. I would like to also keep our psychological leverage over Nathan Marzion and his
specifically
Denzies.
and his liege.
His Denzies of unwashed pale Minnesota or Wisconsinites. But so it's funny the way Bucks fans are like parading around how well they're playing, and they're 10-9 since Doc Rivers was hired. What are we in our last 19 games? Like 14-5, and like
much
everyone's
better.
talking about the season's over. Like, we're terrible. We lost 2 games in a row. So it just tells you like the expectations of these teams have changed so much from the beginning of the year till now, where they're playing 500 ball. They're like, looks way better though. Dude, you're not watching the games because it looks really good. Well, you just got spanked by 30 and gave up, by Golden State, and gave up 40 piece to D'Angelo Russell. Don't check our last Lakers game though.
I know.
that was another time, different era.
It's so annoying that like that
was pre-Doc Rivers.
Yeah,
that Lakers win over the Bucks would have felt like perfect if not for the Celtics losing to the Lakers without LeBron and AD a month ago. But we'll still take it regardless.
Any other points to improve on before we just get onto the Blazers game and then get the hell out of here?
We already kind of spoke about it, but more Derrick White, which we already touched on, which we all agree with, obviously, and then pace in crunch time, which again, I think they've been good at all season for the most part. And Joe is in agreement. Ended the Cleveland game, said we got to go faster. Tatum admitted he's got to go faster. He's waving his arms, trying to get them to go faster in crunch time. So I think he knows, and if he knows, it's all that matters. And so, but pace overall, but specifically pace in crunch time.
Yeah, and the way to fix the pace and crunch time, more Derrick White. He'll fix it
There we
in
go.
one
It's
hand,
all-
single-handedly.
It's all connected.
Yep.
That's right. I have one quick one that I don't think really needs much discussion. It's actually pretty related to the drives one. Generate more corner threes. Last 15 games, we're 24th in corner three attempts per game, and we're 15th on the season. Just like to tick that back up. All our guys are great corner three shooters, except Porzingis, who I still think has not made a corner three this year. But
Because he made one,
Yeah.
but his foot was on the
but
line.
it's on the line.
Yeah.
That's right. He did it again in like 3 or 4 games ago. So, but if you get downhill, help's going to have to come. Usually comes from the corners. Then you kick it out. Boom, generate more corner threes. So it's all connected, man.
I'm in.
The dots.
When are we going to address the NBA discriminating against people whose feet are too big to shoot corner threes?
I know, it's bullshit.
All right, let's get to this Portland game. Let's start with the injury report. Jaylen Brown, questionable with a sacroiliac strain, which I believe is...
Sacroiliac. As
Thank
someone
you.
who's
Ooh,
experienced
nailed it.
Saving me.
sacroiliac, I've experienced sacroiliac issues in the past, so I'm with you, Jaylen. It's basically the pelvis zone.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
which
Never mind.
we'll just
I'm gonna
leave that
keep
alone.
one in the
I was like,
holster.
here we go. I was
Drew-
like, I was like,
Well,
I
Drew-
can,
To jump.
I can let him borrow my pelvis, but we're going to need at least minimum 2 Jake pelvises to match the power of one Jaylen
Use
pelvis.
them
so-
together.
yeah, absolutely. Again, I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole. Also questionable, Drew Holiday, left knee tendinopathy, which I can absolutely relate to. Kristaps Porzingis, right hamstring tightness, again, very relatable as I age. Jayson Tatum, right ankle impingement. Derrick White, left hand sprain. So they're all questionable except for Porzingis, who is confirmed out with the tight hamstring, which at this point I don't see as concerning, other than it's just the team operating at an intelligent level at this point in the season, where we should be resting everyone, especially Kristaps Porzingis. Yes. Jake, what do you think?
I also it's a back-to-back with Portland and Utah, so it would make sense. Yeah, I mean my concern level would go up a tiny bit if he's doesn't play in the Jazz game, but we got a lot of time till the playoffs, so it's not a big concern. But my guess is that he plays in the Utah game.
Yeah, shut him down. Who cares? It's Portland.
Yeah.
Luke Kornet can go for 20 and 10 against Portland, hopefully.
Okay.
We'll
Cornet
see.
and actually, maybe if we don't get Porzingis in the Jazz game, that means that we also just get a shitload of Cornet and Tillman, which will make everybody
Yeah, big
potentially
teabag
happy.
game.
Yeah, big teabag game. Let's go.
Any thoughts on this matchup, Spoonie, with the Delano Banton-led Trailblazers?
This Delano Banton shit is so wild, dude. All
That's
he did
pretty
was
funny.
trash. He looked terrible in Summer League, and now he's dropping 30-point games. Like, I don't know. I've tuned into a little bit of Portland randomly throughout the season, and it is like sometimes they're just hot and look kind of okay because Malcolm Brogdon and Simons are making shots. But if they're not, it's like, hey, Shaden Sharp does cool stuff sometimes, and oh, we're down 40. I mean, they're a mess. They're probably the worst team in the league.
Certainly up there. Yeah, Eric Weiss in the chat. Good point. This is Portland Pritchard time. Portland P.
Yeah.
He's back, so he typically has a really good game in Portland. I'm literally flabbergasted by Delano Banton's production. Like, I'm not watching these Portland games. It's not like not gonna lie, but I don't think I've ever used that word before on the show. But like, I've never been more shocked by anything probably than Delano Banton being good for anyone.
Yeah. You used to call him the best theoretical player in the NBA, so maybe that
Maybe.
what was in theory is now coming into practice. Who knows? Maybe I was right after all. No, I definitely wasn't. And to us, it's just a hilarious byproduct of the season, which is a complete non-threat to us. Even if they do win this game against us, the main thing is we don't even need to win it. It does nothing for the narrative, win or loss. I think it'd be apparent to anybody that if we do lose, we're just not taking the game seriously. And if you question that at all, just look at the injury report for this one. So I'm excited to maybe see an uptick in minutes for guys that we haven't seen enough of, like the big teabag in this one. And, Al Horford is going to play this game with Porzingis out, and then I think we'll flippity-flop that in the next game, and we might see KP in while Horford gets his rest on the second night of a back-to-back there. All right, let's leave it there. That is going to do it for this one. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back with another pod on Tuesday night to break down the Delano Banton revenge game in Portland. Please hit that like button, leave us a 5-star rating and review on the audio pod, and we'll see you on the next one. Spoonie, Jake, love your work, guys. Until next time, go Celtics.
I love the Celtics!